Hey everybody, this is Matt. I'm going to show you how to do the edit video step for the holiday videos. So again, I'm going to just begin by showing you where to find everything. We're in Video Assets Holidays, and here we have everything divided up into the language. So if you click on any one of these, you'll see all the footage in here. And if you're familiar with the way our files are named, this shouldn't be surprising to you. You can see all the lessons for 24, for example, are right here, and they have ascending order of letters for all of these shots. So that should be all what you're expecting. And now I'll get into how to start. So you're going to want to start from a template most of the time, unless you're doing the very first lesson in a language. So the reason we do this is that there's some footage elements and kind of template stuff that is already in there. There's no reason to start from scratch. So just start by going to the language you're going to work on. In this case, I'm going to be working on Bulgarian holidays number 19. So I'll open up 18 and work from there. Okay, so here we have Bulgarian holidays number 18 opened up. And the very first thing before you edit any of this is to save as a different project. So if you do this at the beginning, you don't have to worry about saving over anything. And we're just going to follow this pattern. We're going to name this 19. Okay, so now you can go ahead and clear stuff out. Clear out this footage folder. That's fine. I'm making this full screen, by the way, by hitting the tilde key, which should be above the tab key, unless you're on a weird keyboard, which is very possible. I'm going to rename these sequences both to be what they should be. Press tilde to return back. So you shouldn't need to worry about 720 right now. Just worry about 1080. That's what you're going to edit in. So first we're going to import our footage. And I'm hitting Command I to open up this panel. Go into Video Assets, folder we were in before. This time we're going to be in the Bulgarian folder. And this is lesson 19. So we'll scroll down here. Get all the clips labeled 19. Okay. Let me just clean this up a little bit so it's easy for me to see. Okay. So you're just going to go clip by clip. These holiday videos are very simple because you don't need to edit that much. You don't need to make very many decisions. They all follow the same pattern. So A is always going to be a wide shot, and it's always going to be just this kind of general introduction. B is always going to be the quiz question. C, D, and E are always going to be these long sort of explanation things. So they follow this very predictable pattern, and once you do one, you can kind of get used to it, and you don't have to think as much as you do with, for example, 3 minutes or one of those other videos. So I'm going to start by opening up shot A, and I'll just scan through this to see what it looks like. We have the clip. Sorry, we have the slate, and then looks like we have mess up. Alright. So if you're looking at this visually, you can kind of tell that this area is going to be the usable portion, and you can ignore that completely. Now, that might be helpful to you to look at it this way. I usually go to audio waveform, and it's super easy to understand now, because here you see, here are the claps, slate, slate, slate. And since this is the last slate, this is the last time we ran this take. There's no reason to even look at this, the ones before it. Initially, I edit it in a way, I just do it very roughly. I get everything onto the timeline, and then I kind of watch through it once, make those small clips. Again, you can work however you want. This is how I'm going to work. So I'm going to set my in point and my out point. I'm doing that with the I and the O key. And I'm checking here. I see that all of my tracks are selected. You might have a situation like this, which, or this would probably happen more often, where if you put it to your timeline, it's going to cut off one of the tracks. You want everything on there. So these 6 little sections should all be highlighted. And I'm going to edit it on there just by hitting the comma key. Okay. So between A and B, always, every single holiday video, you're going to have a little graphic, and that's this quiz intro. It looks like this. Quiz time, okay? That's what this actually is, and that's one of the reasons I work with from an old project and just kind of make the changes, is that this is already here. So all I have to do is delete the space right here, and it should edit in nicely.
На детето.
Yeah, just my window. Okay, so we go from A to that little bumper. Next is B. And I'm just going to skip to this part because it's easy to see. There's only one take.
А знае това видео.
Okay, editing that in. And now let's go into C.
На децата.
D.
На всички деца. Деца.
E.
Денят на детето, балони и усмивки.
Okay, and here's where we're going to insert the second little bumper, and this looks like this. The fun fact. It's easy to remember because the shot where we talk about the fun fact is F for fun fact. So you're going to finish E, and then you're going to have this little bumper go in.
Балони и усмивки.
Fun fact, and then after that, we're going to insert F.
Често на мен.
Next is G.
И сега ще ви дам по-рано.
H.
А знаете ли традиции за честването на празника?
And this is the last shot of the video.
Как беше този същия урок?
Okay, I'm going to adjust my out point just like that so that it covers everything. Okay, so at this point, it's all rough cutted in. I would just now want to check all the edits and make sure that they are smooth. So it's hard to do this until you kind of know what we're aiming for. What I just try to do is you don't want there to be a lot of buffer at the end of every shot and at the beginning where they're not talking, where they're just kind of staring. But at the same time, you don't want to cut it so it's too abrupt. So it's just really a thing you get a feel for. Let me take a look at what we have, and maybe I can show you some examples.
Здравейте, аз съм Ива.
So that is actually okay to me.
Здравейте,
The other thing to think about at the very beginning is that we're going to have a little transition. I think it's about 10 frames, maybe 15 frames. So it's not going to be until this point that the host is completely on screen, not covered up by any graphical elements at all. So you probably don't want her to actually say anything until after that transition's happened. So like if we look at here, this is pretty good because the transition ends here, a little bit of blank space, like 3 frames, and then she talks. So
Здравейте.
That seems just about right for me. Now I'm going to skip to here, to the end.
Българите празнуват Деня на детето. Българите празнуват Деня на детето.
Again, I would probably be okay if it looked like that. If I got a final video and it looked just like that, I would not send it back or anything. Maybe just a few frames shorter though.
Българите празнуват Деня на детето.
Okay.
А знаете ли кога се пада Световния ден на децата? Ще ви покажем отговора в края на това видео.
Okay, that in point looked perfect to me. Just enough space here.
А знаете ли това видео?
This
Това
guy
видео.
doesn't quite seem right to me.
Края на това видео. Денят на детето.
I think I might just want to hold a little bit longer.
Края на това видео. Денят на детето се
Okay, then I want to look at this clip. It looks like her mouth is a little bit open at the beginning of this shot. As we go from the end of the previous shot, you know, you kind of see that. It's going to make the edit look a little bit not smooth. So it's just a decision part. You got to weigh how much does that bother you versus if we were going to do something to fix that, would that create more problems than it solves? So like if I go back here, I see that if we go back this amount, so that is about 8 frames earlier than we were doing, then it actually turns out all right. The transition would look a lot smoother, but let's see what happens to the timing. So I'm going to bring this forward. I'll edit the endpoint here. Now I'm removing the space. Now let's watch this.
края на това видео. Денят на детето се
Okay, so I don't feel like that makes it too long of a pause. And here we also get rid of that mouth edit, so it creates a nice edit that feels pretty smooth to me.
това видео. Денят на детето се
I would just say that because we now have a long pause here, maybe less of a pause. I'm actually going to undo that edit I did here.
в края на това видео. Денят на детето
Okay, so I feel like that's a pretty good edit. But it's very, very much like a situation by situation thing. Depends on the problem you see. Now let's look at this edit.
за защита на децата. Този ден се празнува
Okay, first thing is that if you know anything about editing, you know that this is not a good edit because it's a jump cut. And she's going to be on camera here, she's going to be on camera there. But for holidays, it's actually okay because what we do is, so in the final videos, those transitions end up looking like this.
защото Свети Йосиф е земният баща на Исус. За първи път
So we do the kind of a crossfade between these, and that smooths out that edit a little bit. So basically, for the extent of these 3 shots, she's going to be in the same position on screen. It's going to be treated as if it were one continuous take. So then what you need to think about here is that there's going to be a crossfade. And so what will make these crossfades look bad, and sometimes this is unavoidable if you're the editor, is just if they're in a completely different position. And we watch out for this on shoots, but sometimes they might slip through the cracks. So I look here,
този ден
she's basically in the same position. If we were to do a crossfade,
този ден
it
се
looks like we're going to be able to do it pretty smoothly. Incidentally, you're not going to do the crossfade in Premiere. You're going to do it in the After Effects step. So not right now. That's not your job. Just get it to the point, edit it in such a way that the crossfade will feel smooth. And so then in terms of timing, what you should think about is just listen through it, and it should feel like a normal sort of pause in between sentences. So let me look at what pause in between sentences that's on camera, completely on camera.
в България, така и в други страни. Обикновено обаче той се пада
Okay, so there's one.
в държави. В България той
So maybe a little bit longer than that, but just don't make it feel like there's an especially long pause here. We don't want to draw any more attention to it. So let me listen to this here.
за защита на децата. Този ден се празнува
Okay, so a little bit long, but we're pretty close. I think we can get away with just trimming a little bit. So since we can trim either direction, let me look and see if there's anything like in the video itself that we'd want to avoid. So here she looks like she's kind of giving a face after she's finished.
децата.
Yeah, I feel like just in this last little part of this clip, she starts looking like there's tension in her face or something like that. So I'm going to remove that bit. So let's see if that takes care of it.
на децата. Този
Okay. And that's for me all I need to do. I think we'll be able to make a good crossfade out of that one. So the next one I won't spend as much time on explaining. I'm just gonna make the change. Okay, so I'm just gonna move this forward a bit. And this one I'll move back. Okay, I think that's fine. Now let's look at this transition here. Okay, that looked just about perfect, except for I felt like she was blinking right in the last frame of that shot. So yeah, maybe I'll just remove 2 frames here, 3 frames. Okay, so we're into our fun fact transition. Let's watch out of here. Again, that one is fine to me, maybe a little bit less. Okay, and we'll check this one. So here it's just kind of a mouth issue. I want to go a little bit more back in this G shot to see if at any point she closes her mouth. And by the way, this is a kind of a shortcut I'm doing. I do this without really thinking about it. But so normally you're on the arrow tool, and the keyboard shortcut for that is just V. But if you ever want to shift everything in the timeline to the right, I'll zoom out a little bit so you can tell what's going on. If you just like move this over, you're going to end up cutting out the shot that follows it. But if you hit the A button, you get this thing which selects everything from this point on. So here I see this. I'm moving it all back. And by the way, if you happen to have something on 2 tracks, it's not going to get the thing on the other track. So sometimes that's useful. But if you want to get everything, you hold down Shift, and that gets everything. You can move it back. So that's one of the things I use quite a bit. Okay, so I'm going to get back into this edit. And so I was just going to check if anywhere in this shot she has her mouth closed completely. All right, looks like that's the best we're gonna get, and I don't know if it's enough of a difference. Like maybe that's fine, but that's quite a bit of a pause. Let me see how that feels. Yeah, I feel like that is too much of her just staring forward. So we're gonna here say it's fine to have a little bit of her mouth in a different position. That's just an area where the footage has made it unavoidable. But I would like maybe a little bit more space. Just I feel like we're cutting off her breath. Okay. That felt a little abrupt right there. Maybe I'll try to hold on to G a little bit longer. All right, usually when I'm trying to do this sort of an edit, I'll just give it a lot of space and then figure out at what point I feel like the cut needs to happen now. So maybe right there, that felt out right. Okay. That looks fine, and now let's set it. All right, in this one, it's just the same thing. I feel like I'm cutting off her breath. So let me go back into the clip and see if we can avoid that. It's almost like she does this kind of a misstart with her mouth, and I don't want that in there. So maybe there. It's a really tough decision here. But I feel like that's okay. Okay, now I'm just going to adjust this guy, check the outro. Okay, and I guess just for here, maybe a little bit more. You want to err on the side of too much, because what's going to happen at the end of here is there's going to be a little graphic. And so it's going to slide in like that. So you want to allow time for that transition to happen before, after she finishes talking. So maybe the transition starts here, and then, you know, enough time for the whole transition to happen. But that's not your decision. So you just give enough for the person who does make that decision, which may be you, but it's going to be the next step. Give them enough stuff to work with. Okay, so at this point, you are all done. Check your footage, folders, and everything in here to make sure it's okay. Hit save, and that's all there is to editing.